Lord, we come to you and ask for your guidance as we do our duty, make law here in the Cherokee Nation. We ask that you watch over our servicemen and women around the world, those that are there and those that are fixing to be there. We ask that you watch over this nation and the United States of America. We've got some tough economic times ahead of us, and that seems to affect a lot of people. Watch out for us, help us make good decisions. Thank you. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Cherokee Honey. Bill Anglin.
Here.
Phil John Baker.
Here.
Harley Bozer.
Here.
Julia Coates.
Here.
Bradley Cobb.
Hello, honey.
Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk.
Here.
Meredith Fraley. Janelle Fulbright. Don Garvin. Chuck Hudson Jr.
Here.
Tina Glory George.
Present.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris So.
Here.
David Thornton.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum. So entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 13th subcommittee and October 30th regular session. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next we have our reports. First is our treasurer's report. Ms. Catcher. Excuse me, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Chairman, if I could at this time, I passed around a piece of paper having to do with the Cherokee Artists Association, and I would like to amend the agenda to in new business just before the mod to revisit. This was tabled during budget hearings, and I'd like to put this on the agenda. Put this in form of motion.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Motion's been made to amend the agenda to add an item for the Cherokee Artists Association before the budget mod. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman Hoskins.
this time I'd like to move to amend the agenda. There's been a piece of legislation circulated, actually two that look very similar. One has my name in the upper right-hand corner. They're both dealing with the same issue, so my point here is to amend the agenda to include discussion of this legislation. And it can be placed at the chairman's convenience as far as where on the agenda.
Okay. We'll place this item right to the budget mod, item 3.
Was that for both?
And that's fine, Mr. Chairman. They're similar. They have some competing provisions, so I expect them to be talking about both provisions.
Okay, the motion's been made that we have 2 items dealing with the smoke shops and the rebate issues, and that they be placed right after the budget mod. Do I hear a second?
Second.
You want to
Any-
amend this to?
Yes.
If you would accept the friendly amendment to also add one sponsored by Jack Baker, it's a resolution of matching funds for the Cherokee Nation Economic Development Trust Authority, and make it the next item.
I accept.
Okay. All those in favor of amending the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Receive Ms. Kedger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should have my written report. It's an abbreviated report for the month of September because we're still in the middle of closing the books. We are in the midst of running financials and hope to have a first pass by the 1st of December. Audit firm will be on site early January, so we are on track with our year-end closing. If there are any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions from Ms. Kedger? You got a easy today. Thanks
you.
very much. Cherokee Nation Enterprises, Mr. Walcott.
Good afternoon, committee members. You have a committee report in front of you. Again, with the holiday scheduled next week and this meeting up a week earlier, we also haven't had a chance to close formally the October financials. I can give you some preliminary insight to those figures. First of all, for fiscal year '08, we ended up with a net income about $116 million, up about $5.5 million over the previous fiscal year. Gross revenues throughout fiscal year '08 were approximately about 6% year-over-year growth rate increase in revenues. However, beginning in the month of September, the last month of our fiscal year, we began to see that trend change, due largely in part to the economy and a little less average per spend with our guest base. But gross revenues during the month of September were just slightly up over the previous September, and we see the same trend continue in October as well. October revenues look like they're going to come in about $35.5 million, just slightly above October of '07, or the previous October. Net income is going to come in approximately about $6.5 million, down from prior October, largely in part to pre-opening expenses, payroll, advertising, marketing, player development, some cost of goods sold on the West Siloam opening. We did, in fact, open that property on schedule, November 10th. That's a beautiful property. I don't know if you folks have been out there yet or have had the chance, but the property opened up on time, and we'll actually have in a rather soft, unadvertised fashion on November 10th. The steakhouse component opened up 4 days later, that Friday night. We're starting to see in its first couple weeks the property hitting its peak capacity of gaming devices on the weekends. A good signal that we may need to add more gaming devices to capture that demand on the weekend. We have a formal grand opening. I hope each and every one of you have a chance to attend that Monday from, I believe, don't quote me, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so really proud of that property in its first couple weeks of opening. Catoosa, obviously, management's focused now on the Catoosa opening, scheduled for December 15th. The finishing is going in, the carpeting is in at this point, the games are going in, and so the casino floor is really starting to take shape as they get that prepared to begin testing games and going through some of the same mock simulations as we did at West Siloam prior to its opening. The hotel towers on schedule, as well as all the convention and meeting space in the early spring. Employment, we hired just about 400 new employees combined to date for West Siloam and the early stages of Catoosa, with about 250 more employees remaining at Catoosa. The Cherokee employment percentage is just over 58%. Took about a 1% dip in the West Siloam opening with almost the 400 employees that were added. We've had a noticeable turnover reduction this year over last year. We're down almost to 30% turnover. In prior year, it was almost 45%. So noticeable turnover reduction. We're in the final stages of implementing our casino patron management slot tracking system. It's a significant system to improve the marketing efforts and the player tracking efforts, the accounting efforts, all aspects of our gaming, and we're at the final stages, actually implementing Catoosa this week as I speak. So, other than that, I'm open for any questions the committee might have.
Mr. Busby.
Yes, sir.
Guy, I know that in the report it said that the West Siloam Springs casino was complete. You had a chance to run the numbers yet and see where we are as far as what we budgeted for the casino versus what we spent on the thing?
On the capital
expenditure.
At this point, we don't have it completed. In fact, because only the first phase of it's completed, so don't have that comparison of actual budget yet, because I don't have all the construction invoices in at this point. There's still some wrap-up work on the casino phase aspect of it.
Yeah, can you have those next month? Or I'd be interested in seeing how we're comparing, with what we're spending, because I guess some of the steel prices, I'm sure some of the bidders have bought some of the steel for the hotel, and the steel probably was high.
It was.
I'm just wondering what effect that's going to have on the overall
Yeah,
cost of the project.
Obviously, the steel was a big driver of some of the contingency that we had to go into on that. So the early prelimination is we're probably in that 5 to 8% over the original budget, and it's largely in part to steel and construction materials.
Okay, well, if I can get that report.
I think we can get that on the first phase of it. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Are there any questions?
Okay, good day.
Next is Cherokee Nation Industries.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I believe you have my report for October accounting. We were able to close our books in October. Revenue for the month of October total $6.7 million, down 8.6% from prior year, down 35.8% from our October budget. Of our shortfall in revenue of $3,755,000, our construction segment accounted for $2.2 million of that, the lion's share of our miss. Actual loss for the month amounted to $303,000 versus our budgeted loss of $19,000. Of that $284,000 difference between budget, again, construction accounted for $207,000 of that difference. Our inability at this point in time to have a bonding facility in place for our construction division caused us not to bid on some construction projects that we had anticipated we would have in place by this time. We are working to get that facility in place with CNB.
Ms. Watts?
Yeah, well, I was curious, what are the actual logistical or technical barriers to the bonding?
The sovereignty issue and indemnification, how far up the food chain the Hartford group is looking to get to. So those are the two problematic issues we have. We have a meeting actually tomorrow at CNB to discuss our latest status. And we are continuing to bid on construction projects that do not require bonding.
May I continue?
Yes.
So what are your, I mean, I saw those financial statements, percentage-wise, it was kind of concerning. So what actions are we taking going forward, or do we perceive that we can manage with what we've got?
Well, a lion's share of our profits for 2009 were for construction. So if we're unable to get the bonding in place, it's going to be difficult for us to achieve our 2009 budget. We'll have to come up with alternate plans to compensate for construction. We have a off-site meeting on December 5th and December 6th with the executive group to develop action plans for us to try to come up with tangible efforts to meet our budget by business segment and track those plans for the balance of this fiscal year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Ms. Frank?
Mr. Forcian Bell, do you have a pretty healthy backlog for people employed for an extended period of time?
Yes.
What kind of backlog do you have now?
I can't give you exactly how much it is, but I know it's a couple of 3 months.
Okay, good.
And on A&D manufacturing, actually for the month of October, our revenue was right on the budget, $1,972,000 versus $1,972,000. We were right on the budget, but our expenses were higher than our budgeted expenses. So part of our action plans is how to increase our efficiency with the workforce in A&D manufacturing and minimizing scrap expense and obsolete inventory and those types of expenditures that have bitten us hard recently.
When they're bidding contracts, are they bidding materials and labor, or only labor, or how are they bidding those now?
Well, we just in the process of bidding a new contract for Bell, which is materials and labor for a 5-year period of time. So,
Thank
the contracts are coming in, and if we're successful, we'll continue that business base.
Great.
Any other questions for Mr. Bostad?
Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next is Cherokee Nation Businesses, Mr. Carson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Let me address in perhaps greater detail on a consolidated basis the financial performance of the various entities, picking up on what Bob and Guy both said, and then perhaps can address the bonding issues and a couple of other things, and add some flavor to that as well. On a consolidated basis for fiscal year 08, the entities did about $109 million. They did that with an ending balance sheet that showed us having total assets of nearly $460 million, with liabilities of about $90 million, giving a total equity for the for-profit side of the Cherokee Nation of about $370 million. In terms of actual cash for the year, the various entities generated $163 million in change in cash. Much of that, of course, was devoted to various projects such as the West Siloam expansion, the Catoosa expansion. $35 million was paid to the nation in terms of dividends for various social services, leaving us with about $89 million in cash at the moment, but most of that is committed or tied up in various projects. And so that's where we stand on a cash flow basis as of today. To address some of the things that are going on, of course, at the last meeting, Bob Huffman stood in my place and talked about the $60 million in New Markets tax credits that we were awarded. We were the only tribal enterprise in the country to be awarded such an allocation in a very competitive process. We received an actual larger allocation than any other entity in the nation, tribal or otherwise, who's doing similar work to us, and we think they're going to be a powerful tool to promote economic development. We've already had several inquiries over the next 2 to 3 months as we roll those out. We're excited about what those can do.
Excuse me, Mr. Carson. Mr. Baker.
How much have you borrowed?
I'm sorry?
How much have you borrowed?
We borrowed zero at this stage.
Did I win a status? No.
We borrowed some in the past and paid it down, however. So we'll have to refer back to the transcript to see the actual terms of the wager, Mr. Baker. But perhaps I should pay up on that one. On the bonding side of things, this council was progressive in passing a resolution allowing us to bond. We are in the process of putting those in place. There have been just elaborate negotiations with various bonding companies. It is safe to say that most bonding companies around the country aren't familiar with tribal enterprises. And so there's a tremendous educational process that has to go in place and a lot of skepticism that they initially have. We have ready to go a $30 million bond line for all the entities that should be put in place in just the next few days, though, and that is the subject matter of the meeting that Mr. Dvorak talked about tomorrow. So the bonding issue is coming together, but it is a difficult and indeed a rare thing in Indian country to have a facility like this in place. We, of course, have hired Tom Elkins to run the landfill company. We have the environmental study that this council requested, has been returned to us, and if it hasn't already been delivered to the entire council, it soon will be. A couple of the folks on the council have seen drafts of that, but it will be delivered to the entire council forthwith. And Tom and some of the folks from CNB will be happy to answer questions about that as well. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the things I spoke of.
Yes. Ms. Fisher.
Now, 2 owners out by the landfill. Dan told me y'all was going to try to wrap it up this week.
That is true. I mean, what we have to do, there are numerous issues with the 2 owners near the landfill, largely driven by the fact that the demands for payment are greatly in excess of the fair market value of that land. And so for the sake of the Cherokee Nation, obviously we're trying to negotiate what is a reasonable price to pay for that. Right now we haven't been able to reach agreement on that, but we are hopeful to do that.
This week?
It depends on the buyers, or the sellers rather. You know, we have our constraints. We can't just pay anything that people demand. But we've made a more than generous offer, far in excess of the fair market value of that property. But as of right now, the sellers have not accepted those offers.
Okay.
Ms. Jordan.
How does ask that, the tax credits that you secured, how does that generate into jobs for this area? Could you just give just a short summary of how that will work?
Sure, it can work in a number of different ways. You can be creative with them. Let me tell you kind of how they typically will work. Let's say we're trying to either move a business here or recruit a business here, maybe a business that we ourselves don't even own. Well, these credits are worth roughly 40% of the value of an investment. And you can bring in investors who put up roughly 40% of the money for a project. And you couple it with some state tax credits, it's even more than that, perhaps 50, 60% of the project. And you can do that as a powerful inducement to get companies to locate in this particular area. So that's the notion of what we're trying to do. And we talked to 2 or 3 in just a couple of weeks that would like to do that, and we think we'll have a lot of appetite from folks out there to do that. So roughly, whatever the investment size is, roughly 40% of it can be delivered in tax credits, either to that particular business or to outside investors who may just be hungry for the tax benefits that those credits can offer.
So it's new businesses to be created.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. New investment to be made. That's right.
And along with those new businesses, of course, will come job opportunities.
That's right. I mean, we want to structure it. That's why there's actually a lot of legal work in structuring these. So, for example, if we offer the credits to a company that wants to locate in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, or Stillwell, Oklahoma, or anywhere else in the 14 counties, we want to make sure that they hire Cherokees, even though we don't own that company, as a condition for us giving the tax credits. So putting in place some of these legal rules and policies that we can guarantee that is essential for us.
So there would be an agreement with those companies, probably in written, hopefully in written form, where in return for the tax credits, you agree to hire a percentage of your workforce to be Native American and Cherokee.
Absolutely. Our tentative plan, and it is still being drawn up, is that to comply with federal equal employment laws, which allow an Indian-owned enterprise to have a preference for Native Americans, but other companies cannot. They can't have a preference for one group over another. That we could largely do the HR and personnel work for them, and they could hire, we could help with the staffing. And so it would be more than simply an agreement to hire a percentage of Native Americans. It would be that they use a company that we help establish to do the staffing and HR work and recruitment for them, which would allow us to comply with federal law in that respect.
And that'll be up and going in the next couple months?
It'll probably be after the new year that they're formally, we get the actual allocation in December from the federal government, and we're putting in place, again, a number of policies, procedures, legal check marks that have to be fulfilled. So probably after the new year before it's fully operational.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Is there a time frame on getting them out?
Do we have to get them out? We have about 3 years to deploy them. So we'll be working quickly to put that money to use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Mr. Carson? Thanks very much, Brad. Next is Career Services, Melanie Dodge.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Kelly couldn't be here this afternoon. She's in Catoosa. There is a job fair going on currently, as well as a tarot vendor fair, followed by a banquet for the tarot vendors this evening. So there is a copy of our report in your packet, and there has not been a great deal of change. If you all have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Buzzard.
Melody, on the first accomplishment, has referred 17 applicants for hire at the Adair County landfill. How many are they trying to hire with?
I believe that they had requested 20, and Ms. Baird was able to send 17 over there.
And could I ask, how many people are we going to employ with her, you know?
I don't have those numbers with me.
Could I ask Mr. Carson, Brad Carson, a question?
Yes.
Brad, she just reported that they had referred 17 applicants to work at the landfill.
17, I'm sorry, applicants?
Yes. How many do we anticipate employing at the landfill?
Very good. I don't want to speak definitively. I'll have Mr. Elkins send you an email about it. But we I think we have 12 there now. We're adding 2 more, including Mr. Elkins and a marketing person, a Cherokee who we brought on board to do that. I think we are fully staffed at the moment, as far as I know, but let Mr. Elkins speak definitively to that.
Well, that just kind of caught my eye. I'm wondering how many people it takes to run a landfill, and, I'm forgiving all of our people's work, but, we'd like to turn some type of profit over that. So, anyway, check on it.
I will check on that and make sure.
Ms. Fishinghawk may have an answer.
They're only, I had asked about it because we was referring all the Cherokee sellers, and they're getting different pay, but they don't get benefits. And it's just for the time of the year that you all's doing construction is how I understood it.
Oh, temporary work.
Yes, it's just temporary. They'll get their pay. Matter of fact, they don't even have to have your dump truck license and stuff because it's staying on restricted land. And they will probably pick up, they told me 2 or 3 afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they've only hired 1 so far.
Any other questions for Melanie? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next is Commerce. Shay Smith for N and I.
Hi, I'm sorry Anna wasn't able to be here this afternoon. She is also at the Tarot Vendor Fair and Awards reception this evening in Catoosa. So you should have our report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Mr. Sutton.
Sure. Could you send me an application for a small business loan and maybe a business plan as a representative of my company, that application? I have constituents that would like to see an application and just kind of have something to look at for guidance before that.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Shay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ketcher, you didn't get off the hook quite so easily. I'm afraid there is a question for you. Ms. Fishinghawk.
I was asking about you before the meeting about the professional services, $54,000 from the pay center. What? And you said you'd give me that. How do they do their bid process? I'm curious.
Well, they have a separate accounting system. They're treated just like a separate entity, same as C&E, C&B, Home Health. So they do all of their procurement, all of their accounting separately. So I don't have off the top of my head what makes up that number, but I can get it for you.
Okay. I'm kind of curious about that.
Okay.
And can you also check on supplies, the small equipment for computers, the $50,000?
Okay.
And the repair and maintenance?
Why don't I get with the PACE accountant and give you an overview of the major items in there, since they're in this startup period, so that you have a better understanding of what the investment in this center has been and some of those line items.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Please, Ms. Ketcher. Okay. Next are consent items. We have the tarot certifications. There's a list that was passed out to you. I would entertain a motion for their approval.
I make a motion to approve the ones that are ready for approval.
And they are identified as ones recommended for approval. So, any discussion? Pardon? Okay. Okay. Does that also include the old business recommended for recertification? Excuse me.
That is, those that are recommended
For approval.
Approval,
Okay.
but not those
Both,
pending.
right, both new and old.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay. Next is the cemetery restoration assistance. Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chairman, there are two this month, one for Mays County, Jack Reuben Indian Cemetery, and one in Cherokee County, Lowry Cemetery.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made to approve both of them, right? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Next, law enforcement request.
And no requests.
Okay.
And we're still waiting on the apportionment of the vehicle tax revenues from 08.
Okay. Community assistance.
In addition to the items that was included in your packet, also have the following submissions. Marble City Food Pantry, $750 each. Mr. Thornton, Ms. Fulbright. Sequoia High School cheerleaders, $4,800. $650, Mr. Baker and Ms. Jordan each. $500 each, Mr. Crittenden, Ms. Fishing Hawk. $500, Ms. Fulbright. $500, Ms. Fraley. $500, Mr. Soap. $500, Mr. Baker and Ms. Coates. Nowata Library, Mr. Hoskin. $500. Folk Foundation, $200. $1,000 each, Mr. Crittenden, Ms. Fishing Hawk for Spade Mountain Cherokee Community Organization.
That completes the list. Are there any additions? Entertain a motion for their approval. Have a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Next are roads.
There are no road requests this month, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next we go to old business, and it's district community meetings. Mr. Hembry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a continuation of the last month's meeting, as several councilors had questions about the tie-ins for the at-large councilors. After speaking with Chairman Baker, I would request that a new number 7 be added, which would state, during the year in which an at-large council member is a candidate for election, he/she shall not use these funds to attend community meetings between the months from January through August. It's during the year in which a council member is a candidate for election. That meaning that if you are an at-large council member and it is your turn you're up on the staggered terms, from January, which is basically the beginning of that year, through August, you could attend these meetings, but you'd have to use your personal funds or campaign funds to attend them. You couldn't travel on the Cherokee Nation funds. And
Mr. Baker.
Well, okay, I guess I'm confused, because they wouldn't use these monies to travel anyway. They'd use their council travel. I mean, they wouldn't use these to travel to the California celebration or whatever.
okay, I mean, there's no restriction on it, but I mean,
yeah. So I mean, it really is not hurting it, isn't it?
Right.
okay.
Because the funds would be coming from the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council. And not from the
Okay. Well, I mean, I wasn't aware that you all used the travel funds there, so, well, then strike that then, all right? And, the idea being that I know there was concerns about, at-large council members, and again, last month I said if you guys had other ideas, let me know, and I await any other ideas, because I presented the 6, and I think the 6 are fine. We added the 2-mile radius for districts within the or to have meetings within a 2-mile radius of your district. So I get this, at this point, what say the council? I mean,
Okay. So I would entertain a motion for the approval of the guidelines.
So moved.
Second. So the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Gibb. Okay. No other old business, new business. We have, the first item is the Cherokee Artists Association.
There's been a letter sent, passed out to each and every one that I got this morning. It wasn't that I wouldn't have sent it out earlier, but I just got it this morning. We had, in this committee, on April 15th of 08, it was addressed and in the Education Committee, and we had sat there and talked about giving the Artists Association $25,000. We had been giving them $5,000 a year, but they were opening up a permanent location where they could teach, those kinds of things. And in the discussion, we broke it down into two payments. And then during the budget cycle, there was some confusion that they hadn't gotten their $5,000 yet, and so we didn't know if they were wanting the $7,500, they wanted the $12,500, what to do, and so we tabled it. Well, we'll have money in this coming forth this round to fix this, but can I yield for a second? Because there's a note here in front of me that I have not read, and apparently the Secretary of State wants to address this.
Yes.
Is that right?
I'd be happy to, but
Ms.
don't want
Bond.
to interrupt. I handed a draft letter that I've been working on just to update the association about their funding status, and I had not yet sent it out, but since it was amended to the agenda today, I thought it was relevant to your discussion. There is, as the councilor pointed out, $5,000 already in the budget for the association that I have not released yet. And this letter was to inform the association of where that money was, that it was indeed appropriated, some updates on what we've donated to the organization so far, and what I'm going to ask of them, as I'm going to ask of many different organizations that we donate to, like the Will Rogers Museum, like the Five Tribes Museum. Any of those organizations that deal with art or exhibits, I'm going to ask them to certify under the Art Act that we're in compliance with the provisions of that act. And the reason that this is blacked out is I haven't figured out what I'm going to ask them to do yet. At first I was considering having them send a letter certifying that they're in compliance with the act, and then I would release the funds. It will probably be something like that that I would ask them to do before releasing the $5,000. So I just wanted to inform you all. I wasn't ready to send this over, but since it came up on your agenda, I thought you needed to know that I was getting ready to do that. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So anyway, they have made the last $5,000 that they received stretch as far as they possibly can, and they are basically out of money. And apparently we've got another $5,000 about ready to go. But and you're going to hold it till when?
Yes.
My plan is to ask them to certify, as I'm saying in this letter, that they're in compliance with the act, and then we would release the funds after we receive that assurance.
That being said, I would at a minimum like to bump the $5,000 up to the $7,500 to finish out at least the first half of the council of the Education Committee's promise to them. So I'm going to move that we add another $2,500 to that. form of a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded that we increase the contribution from the 5,000 to 7,500. Councilor Cobb.
Madam Secretary of State, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here. We agreed to $12,500 per year. To date, we've given them $5,000. In 08, before the ART Act was passed, we had agreed to give them in fiscal year 08 $12,500.
I'm not sure of that record. It was discussed in another committee. I believe it was Education Committee, and then put forward to ENF Committee where it was tabled. I don't know of a decision that ultimately went to full council on that. So I don't know that 12.5 was formally adopted by the council.
And I agree with.
I would like to. You're not sure, is that?
No, I said I agree with Ms. Knight that it was never adopted in full council. It was tabled in the NF.
So we're not sure really what we agreed to give them. Is that kind of
Well, what I do know is that the 5,000 is in the budget and was approved. So I do know of that amount.
What I'm ultimately going to say is before that ART Act was passed, we need to honor what we agreed to pay them in fiscal year 08. I do believe that. But now after that, obviously I have an issue with their board not being 51%. So that's another discussion. But so I'm not a big believer in retroactive stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
But Ms. Knight is correct that nothing was.
Okay, and that'd be my question. So if we don't know, we don't know.
No, we do know.
No, what I'm saying, I know we know, but what I'm saying is if we never finally just said yes and it was voted on, then we never did agree. So
we did not agree to cut any money.
That's what I want to know.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, there was several issues. I think the last time we discussed money that they eventually were answered, but they weren't answered in a timely manner to ever act on the money that was discussed. So I don't think that we ever came to a full conclusion about what money they would get. I don't see that this body should increase money when there's so many questions on the table about brought forward, and I'm concerned about why they would not have taken the 5,000 square feet of free space. So we're automatically subsidizing them for something we could inherently, we're already paying for space, and we've agreed that we would give them the use of that space, but they knowingly went ahead with this other deal. Their board's not 51%. They've had a considerable amount of money. I mean, I want to support them, but those are big questions. We don't support other organizations because of these very reasons, so I don't see why we would put more money on the table. I'd like to table this to next month when we have more information to answer these concerns. So I made a motion.
Made and seconded to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have the budget mod. Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chairman, there's only one award adjustment on the grant side for this month. That's the EPA underground storage tank, $50,000 reduction. Mod 2 has 13 budgets in it with a net increase of $1,650,000. The general fund, however, is increasing net slightly over $2 million. A new program, new initiative, the road transit program, which was also, I believe, previously mentioned up at the Head Start during the meetings earlier this month, is requesting a reallocation of previously appropriated funds from the cash match budget for $144,000. It's been requested to purchase a new van and subsidize operating expenses for the CATS company and operating expenses for a televan company for transit. That'll leave a balance of $106,000 out of the $500,000 cash match for grant budget that was originally put in the budget. So obviously, here early on in the year, our cash match for grants are being depleted pretty quickly. So, and I've talked to Treasurer Ketcher about, I believe that she has full intentions of upping that back up to close to its original budgeted amount when carryover funds are made available. Items 2 and 3 in the budget is simply a transfer of a FTE from the Communications Department over to the Government Relations with no net impact to the budget. The Cancer and Diabetes Treatment and Prevention budget, where the lion's share of these funds are, it's requesting authority of an additional $2,045,000 of the carryover from '08 for a total '09 budget of $3.2 million. Now, these are the tobacco surtax funds that come in for that purpose. The Gen Fund operations budget is reducing by $45,000 related to a decrease in the scope of activities in the EPC projects budget, which I'll get into a little bit deeper in item 11. And the last item is the actual cash match for grants budget on Gen Fund that's also reduced, requesting a $144,000 decrease in matching funds. The Motor Fuels Tax Fund has an increase of $100,000 for the cemetery preservation. This is related to the prior year carryover funding that is in addition to the current year funding. So this is just requesting 08 unexpended funds from the cemetery program. Indirect cost pool has a reallocation with no net impact. Performable budget activities and asset management and material management are both being combined with the support service department now for the nation. The three activities will be conducted and managed out of the support service budget going forward. The tribal force account fund is a decrease of almost $108,000 related to those EPC projects I mentioned earlier. They're no longer performing environmental reviews for the roads and the realty departments. The remaining $35,000 spending authority on this budget solely related to monitoring activities at the landfill, with $18,000 of that for contracted service. The housing proceeds is decreasing a little over $1,025,000, and it's related to the low rent income budget. They're reducing the budget with 2/3 or 8 months of the decrease being budgeted on the operating subsidy, which is the next item, and the remaining 4 months is budgeted on other NAHASDA activities in the future. The reason we're seeing 2/3 of the $1,025,000 coming back into the budget in the NAHASDA funds, item 13, in the operating subsidy, those two numbers aren't the same. We're putting 2/3 back in. The other third, or roughly $400,000, will be coming at a subsequent mod later this year. I found no technical issues surrounding the budget, and that's all the comments I have.
I would entertain a motion for its approval.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have two proposals relating to the support of the licensed tobacco retailers and the tax rebate. Councilor Hoskin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two proposals here. One is sponsored by Councilor Thornton. It's the one that does not have the various strikes and markups. My version has strikes and markups. Otherwise, they're the same. Just by way of background, Mr. Chairman, we passed the tobacco compact, which changed the tax burden, if you will, on various smoke shops. The tax burden on border shops certainly increased, and what I've been hearing, and I think others have been hearing, is that the burden is too much to bear. The compact, of course, has a provision in it for rebates, tax rebates, and it certainly doesn't mandate the Cherokee Nation rebates, but I think it's good policy that we do rebate. The question is, at what level do we rebate? And that's what question this legislation attempts to answer. There's other provisions in this legislation, but the key provision would be the level of rebate. And what I propose is a rebate of $2.57. If we rebate to the border shops $2.57 of the Cherokee Nation tax, what we're left with is a level playing field as it relates to border and non-border shops as it relates to the tribal tax. So in other words, the tax that would be left would be equal. It would be $1.50 for border and non-border. It seems to me it's certainly necessary to lessen the burden on the border shops. We certainly don't want anyone to go out of business. We want to continue to have these to be going concerns so that we can realize revenues off that. At the same time, we don't want unfair competition between border shops and non-border shops. And my view is $2.57 gets us there, gets us to both of those goals. Now, there's some other issues I had with the Councilor Thornton's draft, and that is that it characterizes this as a subsidy instead of a rebate. Quite frankly, we said what we meant in the compact, which is that it's a rebate, and to call it a subsidy is just inconsistent with the compact, and I think it just sends the wrong message in terms of what terminology that we use. Another issue is whether we should have a sunset provision on a rebate. The compact already provides for a termination date for any rebate. It authorizes the tribe to rebate up until the time when a border state increases at or above the state of Oklahoma. So in my view, we don't need an 18-month sunset provision. We can just have it terminate on the terms of the compact. And finally, the issue of what is a border shop, I think Ms. Webston will speak to that, but my legislation changes it. It doesn't really change what the definition of a border shop is. It just says, it just ties that definition to the compact. So as I anticipate will happen, the compact is going to be amended. That's what I believe. And I think Ms. Webster will speak to that. And as it's amended, this legislation will just evolve along with that. The definition of border shop will evolve along with that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would move for the approval of my version of that legislation.
So do I hear a second?
Second.
So the motion's been made and seconded, now we're open for discussion. Ms. Webster.
I just have some information that I would like to pass out to the council. It is a worksheet that has to do with, yeah, sure. And here's another worksheet that has to do with budget also, and I can defer to Callie if she wants to discuss any of that. The first sheet is just a rate comparison that shows you the rates of what our border shops are compared to that bordering state, and then also what that is and the market advantage and disadvantage, and then what it would be with the new rate and what it would be with the subsidy back. And the amount on the thing is a dollar subsidy or rebate, whichever word you prefer to say that, because that was what we proposed, and so that's what was in our worksheet. So, but and then there's also a comparison of the full rate shops versus our border exception shops. And then the second sheet, I was asked for some history. The red bar is the actual tax collected, and the yellow is what was budgeted, and that's over from FY 2000 through 2008. And then the last sheet also is a copy of the surtax, the amount of surtax that was collected over the time that was in effect, which is not in effect any longer. Whenever retail to retail stopped, the surtax went away. So, but that just gives you some history on that. And then the second sheet that you have, Callie may want to address that, and then I'll try to answer any questions that you may have on what I passed out.
Ms. Ketcher.
The second sheet that's titled Tobacco Tax Revenue Projections based on the 2008 compact. What I did is I took Sharon's information and we calculated what the increased revenue will be from the compact that just went into effect, and then the second half of the sheet calculates what the cost of the rebate would be at various scenarios. And then the very last bottom section on the bottom right, net budget impact, that tells you what the bottom line impact will be depending on the different options on a rebate, starting at $1, going all the way up to $2.57. And I would ask the chairs to consider, once the discussion is concluded on this topic, adding the revenue to this budget mod along with any impact of any rebate that is passed into law today. I realize it will have to go to full council, but should we pass an act authorizing the rebate, we will need spending authority in order to issue those checks. So whatever decisions we make in committee today, I would like to make sure that we add those formally to the budget modification so that they can go to full council.
Okay. Mr. Thorne.
I've been on this for 6 years. If I had attended the council meeting one night 6 years ago and tabled, we wouldn't be here today. So I've had quite a bit of experience with this. And I've stood up, talked to these people out here at these smoke shops. And in '05, we passed the council, passed the 20-mile radius for the lower prices that the, what we call them, border shops would have to pay. And people, we've got 49 smoke shops. 33 of these smoke shops aren't within that border. 33 of those shops are hurting right now. And the border shop says they'll be hurting if they don't get what they want. But who's going to put out of business? The border shops or the people that's inside that aren't border shops? It's really a, if you do, great, and if you don't, great. And I know personally that when you set up a border, then people within 20 miles of that border, where these border shops are getting a funding where they don't have to pay as much, then that hurts the shops that are 20 miles out from there. Because I had a person come to me last week and say, people, when are you going to change this so I don't have to drive down Southside and get my cigarettes? And I think our non-border shops has lost probably up to close to 50% of their business. And we need to do something here. I don't know, if we can get together and come together and figure this out, but this needs to be figured out. But I hadn't figured out how they're going to get the rebate yet. And I hadn't figured out how much rebate. That's what we're deciding. And when they do give the rebate, what's it going to do to these other smoke shops? That's something else I know. And I in no way, shape, or form want to try to change that compact, because I don't want to violate that compact. I don't want to throw this council back in to having to arbitrate, because we're into it if we do it. But anyway, I proposed $1 rebate per carton. And if I've got a smoke shop that's sitting down there at within that boundary, and he sells 8,000 cartons, he's going to get $8,000 back on the rebate. If he sells 16,000, he's going to get 16,000. And I've sat and watched them down in my area. I don't know about any other area. People complain about having to wait in line to get cigarettes. Because in the border shops, it's just a runaround. And people are sitting there waiting to get their cigarettes. So I guarantee you they're selling a lot of cigarettes. And that's another thing I would like to have checked before this is passed. I'd like to know how many cartons of cigarettes are being sold. I'd like to know how many cartons of cigarettes have been bought. That's one of the two things that I'd like to know. And there's another thing that I would like to have the administration go over and see what they couldn't do. And on this, what is this, $4.07 that the tribe is going to get? I want to see if they can't pay these tobacco shops lease out of that. And just see how much funding that's going to bring in, and if we can pay their leases along with the dollar. And to me, until we get these questions answered, I don't want to go over this tobacco shop business. And I don't want to see these people out here at those 33 shops where they can't operate, because they're going down right now, I guarantee you. They'll stand up and say something, they're going down. and they're not going to be able to operate very much longer. But back in '05, they agreed to have these border shops until, and if I remember right in the meetings, until we get a compact, and then we live by the compact. But I don't know what the answer is, but I think we can come up with one if we can get all the information. So it's neither here nor there, but I'm going to make the motion to table this motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
No.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright, Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
No.
China Gloria Jordan,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Callan Watts,
No.
Yul Anglin,
No.
Bill John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates.
No. See, the motion failed.
8-8, it's a tie.
So the motion failed. It was 8-8. Okay, Mr. Hoskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I have great respect for Councilor Thornton and appreciate his experience on the issue. I do have to take some issue with the idea that this legislation puts us at risk for violating the compact, and I'll ask Mr. Henry to give his thoughts on it in a moment, but nothing in this legislation seeks to amend the compact. There is an issue, which I'd like you to speak to, Ms. Webston, about what the meeting of the minds was between the state of Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation as it relates to the definition of border shops. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the state of Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation agreed that the status quo would remain as it related to the definition of border shops. That didn't make it on paper, unfortunately. And the administration's position, I believe, is that the meeting of the minds should prevail, we should amend this compact. This legislation doesn't attempt to amend that. All it does is protects the legislation. If the compact changes its definition, if the state of Oklahoma agrees, then the legislation won't need to be amended at a future date. Nothing in this compact, in my opinion, puts us at risk for being said we violated the compact. I just completely disagree with that. And Mr. Hembry, I don't know if you've had time to form an opinion, but do you believe that the idea of a rebate violates the compact or any other provision in this legislation?
Well, I just happen to have a copy of the compact. When I was asked to make an opinion 10 seconds ago. But Section 4 of the compact on page 4, it states, when we talk about specifically the rebate issue, and it says the states authorize the nations, and the nation requires all wholesalers, licensed by the state, and that goes through the litany of the tax. What is said about the rebate is simply this: the nation may rebate to border retailers a payment reflecting lost profit from the tribal tax. Okay, that's specific language. Now, is it a dollar for dollar? If we were to come in and say we're going to rebate every bit of tax that we take, there'd be some question on whether that violates it or not. But it does give the nation authority to rebate, a payment reflecting lost profit from the tribal tax, and how we come to that formulation is up to you. Okay.
Ms. Webston, could you speak to the issue, or correct me if I got anything wrong about the definition of a board shop as it relates to the compact negotiations?
Okay, and I'm going to speak to you from my perception of me being in the meetings. I really don't want to speak for the chief, Melanie May, but I really prefer not to speak for him. But it was my understanding in those meetings that the border shops and exception rate shops would be left with the same status quo of where they are. And evidently that was my error in overlooking that and getting that in there. I will have to get with the chief, we'll have to get with the state and try to make all of those corrections, but never was it talked about, to my understanding, of changing that definition of what our border exception rate shops are. So, to my understanding, they are the same, but you're right, the compact does not read that way. So, I'm trying to make arrangements right now to clarify that and get it corrected.
Now, apart from the definition issue, and apart from the level of rebate, the idea of a rebate as a flat price per carton.
Yes.
I mean, it strikes me that that is the most efficient way for your office to administer this rebate program.
I agree. I looked at sales, we looked at lost profit, and we looked at purchases. Purchases will be the easiest to track and the easiest to administer from, because I get that information from two sources. I get that information from the wholesaler and I get that information from the retailer. So I have a reconciling item there where I can look back at both sides to make sure that the number that I'm using is correct. Sales, not to say that anyone would, and I'm not accusing. Sales can be manipulated if you so desired. So can your profit margin as far as the bottom line goes on a set of books. So I feel that the most accurate number that we could work off of would be purchases to be able to administer that rebate back. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, could I yield to Joe Lane to speak to what, from his perspective, the impact of this rebate issue is on the smoke shops? I'm sure he could give us some brief comments. But very brief. Yes.
Good afternoon. I was hoping I wouldn't have to be here, but I don't have a very big dog in this hunt, but I got a dog in this hunt. I guess you might say I've got a border shop. It's not very big, but it affects it. It makes a little money. And I'd like to back up and say, there's no panacea. There's no perfect remedy for this whole thing. And Don's right, David's right. We've been fighting this thing for years. But I'm trying to put it a way that you can understand. We set up these border rate shops, one for the Arkansas border, one for the Missouri border, and one for the Kansas border, because all the shops or all the convenience stores in that area could price better than we could. And that's why the state offered it to us. And that's why they offered it back to us again. And I'm saying for us to continue to be price effective, and the only thing we have to market our product is a tax advantage. Immediately, if we go to Missouri and make these shops pay $6.65, Missouri's tax rate's $1.70. So automatically, we lose the Missouri and Miami people. On the Arkansas border, if we go to $6.65, their tax is $4. So they've got us beat by $2.65. It's a slippery slope. It depends on how much you want to rebate to us. We're at your mercy. We're at the administration's mercy. But right now, we've got other problems also. And that's with our interior shops. They're having to pay the $6.65 or $8.58 right now. We need the $6.65 rate in Tulsa just to survive a little bit longer. It will not fix our problem in Tulsa, Owasso, Claremore, Salisal, Stillwell, or Salisal, because we've got other tribes that sell cigarettes a lot cheaper than we do. The Creeks have got a Tier 4 cigarette that's they sell for $12 a carton. Our cheapest cigarette's $20. We get $2 break, so we're going to be at 18. We're still going to be beat by $6. And I don't have an answer, but it has, with this compact, has put us into a little better situation in cash flow. We can hang on a little bit longer, but hopefully the state will step up and enforce their tax codes against these tribes that are buying illegal contraband cigarettes. And I don't know if I answered your question, but if you have any, ask me.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lane. Okay. Ms. Watts?
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the tax rebate to $1.50.
I'll second that.
So the motion's been made and seconded that we change the amount of the rebate from $2.57 to $1.50.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
No.
Hannah Glory Jordan,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Chris Stope,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts,
Yes.
Bill Anglin,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk.
No.
12 yes and 5 no.
12 yes, 5 no. The motion carried.
Do I still have the floor?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to include the 18 months clause, the sunset provision.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Hoskin?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it would be redundant, but let me say that that's redundant, because the compact has its own mechanism for terminating a rebate. Mr. Henry, you're a quick read on the compact. I'm sure you'll back me up, but the fact of the matter is we can rebate until the states, the bordering states, go at or above the rate of the state of Oklahoma. Why would we contract our ability to do that? I don't think we should. Certainly as we go down the road, we can analyze it and decide we may want to revisit the rebate idea, but I think there's already a mechanism in the compact that will trigger an end to the rebate, so I just disagree that we need to impose 18 months.
Ms. Fishinghawk?
I kind of want to echo his sentiments and ask Mr. Henry, why would we want to impose it?
That's a policy issue that... Well, to answer the question, there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a provision in the compact, and I'm trying to find it right here, that that if the states, the border states raise their taxes, then it shuts off or sunsets automatically. I can't put my
Perhaps we need to address it to admin to ask why would we want to tie our own hands.
Pardon?
I think in paragraph 3,
excuse me, go ahead.
I think in paragraph 3, there's discussion about midway through about rebates for the border shop, and it picks up until such time as the state, and it names the states, increases tax on tobacco products to a rate at or above the rate currently effective within the state. So there's your,
Yeah.
there's your date certain.
That's page 3, section 3, correct.
Are you finished, Ms.
No, I
Fisher-Hall?
want to address why would we tie our own hands when we don't have to?
For 18 months, you mean? For the 18 months? It's up to you.
I mean, I look at it from the business standpoint, that don't make sense, it's silly.
I can speak from where we were coming from when we talked about this and came up with an initial 18 months, and that was one that the compact provides that we provide a rebate based on lost profits, and up to this point we have been unable to determine whether there will be any lost profits as a result of this compact, or how much lost profits there may be. So whether it's $1, whether it's $1.50, whether it should be 50 cents, whether it should be 0, I'm not sure that we have at this point in time proof that there will be any degree of lost profits, and so there should be a sunset to allow all of us to evaluate whether there were any lost sales as a result of this compact, because I can't stand up here today and tell you that there will be.
Can we not go back and revisit it?
I think that's certainly amenable to do, and certainly it would be something that the tax commission is going to do, is to be looking at those set degree of sales, which we did with the interior shops when they went to 858, and whether sales go up or sales go down. In the case of the interior shops, we analyzed it, and overall it was a decrease of 14%, but if you look shop by shop, it was all over the board. Some of them lost 0 sales, some of them went up in sales, and some of them went down in sales. So at this point, like I said, I don't think we have the information to tell you whether there will be lost sales or not.
Ms. Watts?
Thank you. And I'll just be clear for the record, I don't think that there's any obligation under the compact that we have, but I think that I feel a sense of urgency, even though there's nothing from the compact's perspective, but I think we should pass something today and look at maybe an opportunity later to reevaluate the situation and to make it more palatable for it to pass today. I think this is a good way to compromise to look at this issue later on. And I would hope that everybody could support that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hoskin?
Well, I appreciate Councilwoman Watt's comments. My only observation is that we don't need a sunset clause to study anything. We have the ability at any time to revisit the issue without a self-imposed 18-month deadline. So if councilors are concerned that we need time to study, let's take that time to study. So I think we don't need the self-imposed deadline to do it.
Any further discussion on the motion to sunset after 18 months? Mr. Baker?
Yeah, and if you say it's not pertinent, I think it is. The chair gave a rate comparison a while ago, and we're sitting here trying to sunset and try and pass a one size fits all. And folks, it's not one size fits all. We're talking about border rates in Arkansas that they'll be at a $5.40 disadvantage if we pass this. The interior shops are going to have a $3.65 advantage. That's what they're going to have. Arkansas is even if the $1.50, you're still at a $1.75 disadvantage, and the interior shops are at a plus. So the $3.65 and the $1.75 minus, they're at the $5.40 disadvantage. Now, do I want to make them totally even with making the identical amount, even though they can sell for less? No, I don't. I want to protect their interior shops, but I also want to keep border shops in business. Kansas, now they're a lot better off. The Kansas shops are only at a 90-cent disadvantage, and that might be okay. I think they can survive it. Missouri is at a $7.10 disadvantage from the folks just across the border that they're selling cigarettes against. And And we're trying to do a $1.50, one size fits all, when they're competing with different rates. I mean, I truly believed when we did the compact that it anticipated that if Arkansas's rate or Kansas's rate was lower or higher, or lower, that they would get less rebate than the Missouri shop, which is at a much greater disadvantage. And to do a one-size-fits-all, you're going to put some completely out of business immediately. And some of them are going to prosper under this. And where is the fairness in this deal? I mean, they're all Cherokees, they're all employing folks, they're all paying lease payments to citizens, and why would we want to take $1.50 from the interior shops for our tribal tax, and yet charge some of the border shops, 406 less $1.50? I mean, I think we're being penny wise and pound foolish if we continue on this line of saying one size fits all. And I'd much rather table it and let the tax commission sit there and do their comparisons. I mean, they've got one here, but I'm just saying that the Arkansas folks don't need near as much as the Kansas folks, and the Missouri folks need to eat, or no, the Missouri folks need the most. I'm sorry, I looked at it wrong. But the Kansas folks, don't need near what the Missouri folks do, and the Arkansas needs less than that. Or I'm getting confused. Okay.
That's what's good. You want me to?
Kansas is the best.
Yeah.
And
On the 18 months.
yeah, at $1.50, they're going to prosper.
So much.
And I really hope that we don't just, pass this sunset and then move to pass the whole deal. I really think that everybody needs to look at these numbers, and I want to, after this vote, I want to ask Sharon to explain these numbers to as fully as she can, so that everybody truly understands what we're doing here. Thank you.
Okay. Discussion on the sunset?
We've discussed everything but it, I think.
Any further discussion on the
Call the question.
On the,
Mr. Thornton, and then I have Ms. Coates.
what was brought up was the loss of profit. And I think if you'll check your books, smoke shops within 20 miles of the border rate have lost money, and they're down. And another thing about the exemption, smoke shops, exempt is not a border shop, and we need to get that straight.
Okay.
Because I don't want to violate this compact. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to jump in there. And I want to guarantee you the state of Oklahoma don't want to exempt shops out there. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Coates, and then we'll vote.
My thinking, my vote not to table is because I think that we do have some shops that are in trouble at this moment, at this very moment, and to table for a couple of months is going to be great.
Is this
I know, but I'm going to that. And then at this point, I will support, and I second it, and I will support the sunset clause as well, because I think that what it does is spurs us instead to look at this when we do get better information in. I don't want to delay until we get better information, but I agree that we do need more information. We're making some assumptions about who's profiting, who's failing, who, that may not be exactly correct, and until we have that better information, but we can probably assume that some are in deep trouble at this very moment, and so we need to do something pretty immediately here. I agree that one size is not going to fit all, but the reason I'm going to support the sunset clause is that to spur us
to indeed take a second look at this, and when we do get the better information, I think if we don't have that sunset clause in here, that we can drag this out indefinitely, but that's really what the compact would almost encourage, and I don't think we can afford to drag this out or to let this go on indefinitely.
And we're going to vote, and roll call please, on adding the sunset clause.
Bill Anglin,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghop,
No.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
No.
Tina Glory Jordan,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
David Thornton.
No.
Yes.
We have 11 yes and 6 no.
11 yes, 6 no. Motion carried. Now back to the original discussion. I have Mr. Baker, Mr. Thornton, and Ms. Jordan.
Karen,
Yes, sir.
come forward, please, and explain the different border shops. And can I ask, what's an exempt shop?
An exempt shop is a shop that is within a certain radius of another tribe's shop that was at a lower rate. So it's not the 20-mile radius that made them an exempt shop. There's a border shop and there's an exempt
Okay,
shop.
I missed that one. We didn't have any of those.
Okay? All right. I will try to explain the sheet as best as I can. The top part of it, I show you the Arkansas exception rate. Now, the actual Arkansas rate is $5 and something, but they have an exception border rate for the Fort Smith area, which is the $3.40. And then our shops that are sitting over there that are considered the border shops are at $3.58 right now. This is currently, okay? Then the Kansas state rate is $7.90. Our shops are at $1.08. Okay? The Missouri is $1.70, and our shops are at $1.08. Then if you go over to the next column, $10.30 is what the state of Oklahoma is at, and our full rate shops, our interior shops, are currently at $8.58. And then the next row in red tells you what the advantage or disadvantage is to those shops in that area with those states' rates. Okay? Then you go down to the next one, and what I put in is the Arkansas exception rate, and when we go to 665, it will throw those shops into a disadvantage of $3.25 on the tax. Kansas, they still have a positive of $1.25. Missouri, it throws them into a disadvantage of $4.95. And when you go to the interior shops with the Oklahoma rate of $10.30, that gives them an advantage of $3.65. Then the next column is if we were to do the dollar rebate, then that just tells you where that puts them. It would put your Arkansas people still at a $2.25 disadvantage, your Kansas at a $2.25 advantage, Missouri at a $3.95 disadvantage, and your interior shops would not receive a rebate, so they would still be at a $3.65 advantage. Then at the bottom, what I've done is I've done a comparison of where your exception rates are right now, and that is $3.58 for Arkansas and your interior shops. This is a comparison of our border exception shops to our full rate shops. There's a $5 advantage there. The Kansas, it's a $7.50, and Missouri, it's a $7.50. If we went down to the next row, if we gave them the dollar subsidy, they would be at $5.65. The interior shops would be at $6.65, and there would be a $1 disadvantage to your interior shops, to those exception shops and border shops. Now, did I make that clear as mud? If you have questions, I'll try to explain if you have any questions.
Does that answer your questions, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a $7.50 disadvantage with Kansas and a $1 advantage over the interior smoke shops. But the $7.50 disadvantage
That's currently, that's right now, that's before the new compact.
Yeah, but even with the new compact, it's 710.
710?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with the new compact is the bottom. All of your shops would go to 665, and then if whatever we rebated back, then that would actually be your difference between your interior shops and your other shops.
Yeah, but if you're losing 345, if you're in the negative 345 and your Oklahoma shop is 665 plus,
right, I see what you're
that's
saying.
$7.10.
I see what you're saying.
You know.
I was looking at the comparisons differently than you were.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to, originally, the border shops were to have the same advantage as interior shops. I mean, that was the whole purpose of the deal. And, and I'm sure it's different all over the 14 counties. In Tahlequah, the border shop at Briggs does not really affect the two shops in town. It just doesn't. They can sell cheaper out at Briggs. They won't pay the difference to drive out there. We've got the college town. We've got all these things. And so, our shops in town aren't saying, oh, let's really hurt the Briggs shop. That's not the deal. It's a small shop, and they're not out to get them. And but to sit there and put them at a disadvantage, they won't last long.
I understand. And I will bring up another comparison. The lady was at the meeting the other day, and I don't even know what her name is, but she called me, and what she talked about was she's actually within less than 10 miles of an exception shop, and she's a full rate shop, and they're both on the main on the same highway there. So she's saying that really does put her at a disadvantage because she's paying full rate, and this shop's not, and there's less than 10 miles difference in them.
Yeah.
And so she wanted me to bring that forward, and you made your comparison. So I wanted to make that comparison also.
To Tahlequah, it's 7 miles.
Right. So, but the way they are, it's all on one highway. So, that can go both ways.
But I just, I don't see how you pick and choose to make, one shop, with a 90-cent advantage, another with a 7-10 disadvantage, and call that fair.
Is there any other questions on this that I can try to explain?
I would just beg this council to sit here and look and maybe give it up to $2.57 and let the tax commission figure it out as far as the Missouri shops are in much worse, and maybe they would get $3, and the Arkansas shops might only get 90 cents. And, I trust them to run the numbers and make it fair. Because if we sit here and just put the same shoe on this horse and this mule, somebody's going to be real uncomfortable before this deal's over. And I'd put that in the form of a motion, that we change it up to the 257 and trust our tax commission to find the formula that makes it fair to all concerned. That's the form of motion.
Is it 257 or
257.
257.
Is it 257?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, motion's been made.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded that we change the amount to 257 with the...
Point of order. I think we've already voted on that.
It's in a different form.
It's in a different form.
Same day.
Different form.
But it's different.
It is a different motion. I mean, what he is talking about is upping it to 257, giving up to 257, and giving the tax commission the authority to develop zones, an Arkansas zone, a Kansas zone, and a Missouri zone, to implement variations of that rebate. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct. And
Call for question.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
division.
Okay, roll call.
Jody Fishinghawk.
For it.
Meredith Fraley.
No.
Janelle Fulbright.
No.
Don Garvin.
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Yes.
Hannah Gloria Jordan.
Yes.
Curtis Snell.
No.
Chris Soap.
No.
David Thornton.
No.
Kara Cowan Watts.
No.
Bill England.
No.
Bill John Baker.
Yes.
Jack Baker.
No.
Harley Buzzard.
No.
Julia Coates.
No.
Bradley Cobb.
No.
Joe Crittenden.
Yes.
We have 5 yes and 12 no.
Motion failed. Now back to the original motion and Ms. Jordan.
Shannon answered my question. Thank you.
Are there any further discussion?
Call for question with both amendments passed.
Okay. Roll call.
What was the question?
Clarification on what is the question now that we're going to vote on?
The entire,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
The one,
yes.
Kelly requested something on this deal.
Well, the
after
question's been
this.
called,
Yeah.
but we were clarifying
so we're voting on Chuck's with the
$150,
changes
the $1.50 change, and the 18-month sunset clause
put back in.
put back in. Okay. Roll call.
Curtis Snell.
No.
Chris Soap.
Yes.
David Thornton.
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts. Yes. Bill England.
Yes.
Bill John Baker.
No.
Jack Baker.
No.
Harley Buzzard.
Yes.
Julia Coates.
Yes.
Bradley Cobb.
Yes.
Joe Crittenden.
No.
Jody Fishinghawk.
No.
Meredith Fraley.
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright.
Yes.
Don Garvin.
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Yes.
Hannah Gloria Jordan.
No.
We have 11 yes and 6 no.
11 yes, 6 no. Okay. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, under that particular vote, I'd like to, for the council to accept $3,192,452.90 and carry it forward. Or new money? Oh,
Yes.
If
Ms.
I
Kay.
could.
yes.
I would like to
Plus 200.
increase our sources of funding by $5,014,434.70. Oh, forget the 70 cents, we budget in whole dollars. And then increase our uses by $1,821,982. And the use would be for the rebates. The source is the increased revenue from the tobacco combat.
That's what I'm
compact.
saying.
That's it.
Second. And that in the, assuming it's in the budget line.
This is to add it to
It'll
the
be
budget
added
line.
to. Okay. Does everyone understand? We're adding the revenue and then the expenditures for the rebate. Deducting from it. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have a resolution for matching funds for Cherokee Nation Economic Development Trust Authority grant.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Ms.
I
Jordan.
just was wondering where the 180,000 cash match was coming from.
Ms. Kay.
The gym fund?
Well, it would be coming out of our cash match reserve, which I will be requesting next month to increase back up. We don't actually have to have that money because we haven't been awarded the grant yet. This is just the application for the grant.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say,
Can we do that?
What?
We don't have it yet.
Yes.
We don't have the money.
Well, I didn't think we could appropriate dollars that weren't there. I mean, I think it needs to come out. Even though she's not planning on spending it, I don't know that we can appropriate dollars that aren't there yet. And she either, we need to take it out of gen fund now, and then you can replace it with that. But I don't think you can appropriate dollars that you haven't brought forward yet.
It's not appropriating it. All this is doing is approving to apply for the grant. We haven't committed any cash match. We don't commit the match until we physically accept the grant.
And then it goes into the budget line, when we get the grant.
Yep.
Well, I understand how it works. I mean, well, that's why we have a reserve for it. But since there's not enough in that reserve, I think you only have to identify the dollars. I'm not going to bill.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
I just want to make a comment that what we can end up doing is obligating, de-obligating, committing, uncommitting.
Yeah.
It's much easier if we're confident we have the resources in the general fund to cover it. Then once we get the grant award from the funding agency, then we actually go and appropriate the commitment.
We do it very conservatively. When we're awarded a grant, we may spend that grant over 2 or even 3 years, but we budget the match all up front, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, one opposed.
Just on principle.
Okay. And announcements? Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Speaker Fairley wanted me to mention that the recreational chairs that we each received were provided by the Tahlequah Casino, Jerry Long and Clay Young. So I want to tell them thank you, that would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements?
Remind them that there's a taro dinner this evening, and I hope everybody can attend, and if you haven't RSVP'd, let me know and I'll get them taken care of.
Okay. Any further? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.